Well, good morning and welcome to a book launch livecast. I am Everett O'Keefe, the founder of Ignite Press. And today we're going to talk about a really cool book from a really cool author. And I am excited to introduce you to her. Before we go there, I just want to share with you that if you have a book in the works or a book that you want to have in the works, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to have a sit down with you and talk about how a book could change your business, your brand, your organization, your life. And you can always do that through our website, which is simply ignitepress.us. If you go to ignitepress.us, you can register there and we can have a book consultation. Okay, so our author today was referred to me by a good friend up in Oregon. And she comes to us with a wealth of experience and tells us that God called her to write this book, so she better darn well obey and write this book. And so we're going to talk about this wonderful book, which is The Exchange, the Parable of the Seed. By the way, this is available today on Amazon. You can pick it up for 99 cents on the Kindle version. That's a launch day special, and I would encourage you to go do that. So let's bring on the one, the only Alice DeWittie. Alice, good to see you.
Good morning, Everett. Hello from beautiful Central Oregon.
Oh, love it, love it. So you're near the Bend, Oregon area, if I remember correctly, and what a great and beautiful place.
Yeah, it is. Snow-capped mountains, hiked by the river this morning.
Oh, yeah. I still have visions of the Deschutes. It's the Deschutes River that runs there, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I still have visions of that and taking the kids up that way. So Alice, let's get into let's learn a little bit more about you before we get into The Exchange, the book that you've created. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. 20 years in public ed. With the last 11 years, I was a building administrator, ending with being a principal here in the Central Oregon area. And loved it, loved making friends, making influence, loved opening doors for kids. And then about 4 years ago, God said he was releasing me from public ed, which I thought, oh, okay, so what does that mean? And have been exploring several things since then. The last 2 years almost, I've been doing leadership groups, talking about how to lead in kingdom, not just with good principles, but from your heart and from what the Father and the Spirit are saying and how that all works. The noises you hear in the background are my dog, who's celebrating with me today. So then a friend of mine gave me this verse. She said, I really think God has this for you. And the verse was, I am the tongue of a ready writer. And I thought, okay, I have no idea what that means. And I haven't written except for professional stuff. So what in the world are we talking about? And then shortly after that, God gave me a vision, which is actually the first chapter in the book. I wrote it down because that's what you do with these things, and looked at it and asked God, what does this mean? Didn't get any information. Okay. A short time later, I got another one. And I saw that these two were linked. So I wrote them down, stuck them in a file folder, being very organized and all. And then it happened a couple more times. And the good question was, what is this? And God said, it's the parable of the seed. And I went, really? Okay, all right. So I went back and reread that, of course, as anybody would. And I thought, I don't understand how they connect. And then he started giving me ideas after ideas after ideas. And finally, all the characters started to come out and he connected the whole thing for me. I never started the normal Alice would have started with the word. And then how can I teach this? What can I do with this? What does it mean for me today? But God had other plans. You know, man makes his plans and God directs the steps. So God directed it out. And then he said, I want you to publish it. And I thought, no, I don't think so. Feeling very much like Moses in the burning bush. And then I thought, okay, God's always right, so I'll publish it. So I produced a series of blogs on my website with that as the material and thought that I had published it. And it wasn't a very short while later when God said, that wasn't what I meant, and you know it. And I went, oh, like a little kid caught, So connected with my friend Mike as well, that Everett mentioned earlier, and he connected me to Everett. And I've been excited to work with the folks at Ignite Press and have been thrilled with what they've done. And today's the book launch and it's out.
Well, this is exciting. So the book is on Amazon right now, and I don't really want to spill the beans as to exactly how the rankings are going, but I want you to know they're going very, very well. We've actually had some really great early successes today already with the launch, and we have more to come. So that is great. Now, so the exchange. Give us. I mean, because this is a new take on an old parable, right?
Yes.
Obviously, the parable of the seed we've had this for a couple thousand years. So tell me about the exchange and how you've rephrased this and made this relevant to us today.
It's a good question, Everett. There's a lot of very good interpretations out there of this parable. And Jesus, it's one of the few parables that he actually explained to his disciples. So we actually know what he meant by it. But what does that mean for us today? And then how do we access it? And that's what God was talking to me about when I was writing it. He actually started with the 30, 60, 100. They get a very short line in the parable, just basically that good seed was planted and that some yielded 30, 60, and 100. That question has been sitting with me for probably a year and a half. What makes the difference? If it's good seed, which it is, and it goes into soil, how does that same seed yield for some 30, for some 60, and for some 100? And if I'm a 30, how do I get to the 100? That question and those thoughts were what was sitting in the back of my mind as I was processing this. And as God started revealing, he was talking about the key word in that parable is yield. God is so clever.
Mm-hmm.
The key word is yield. How much did the 30 yield? How much did they give of themselves? How much did they exchange with the Father and say, I don't want my way, I want your way? They're still, in the language of Western Christianity, they're still saved. That's still there. But how much do they yield for the kingdom? And it has a lot to do with the things in our lives that we hold for ourselves, those keys that we have. And that key is a theme that runs throughout the exchange. It's the keys that we alone hold. It's the only thing we can actually give. It's what he gave us that we can give back. And we can hold on to everything we want. And we're going to get a little bit of yield in the kingdom because we're good seed. But do we want 100? Do we want everything out of the kingdom? Do we want everything that's available to us? Then that's more and more yield out of us, more and more exchanging things like habits of thought is a big deal. The things that we think about ourselves that are contrary to the word, the things that we think about other people that is contrary to the word, the things that we do that we know we're not supposed to do. I know good and well never to argue with the Father. And yet I do. So why do I do that? Why did Moses do that? But if we want to look at an Old Testament character who had huge yield for the kingdom, it was Moses. So he stood at the burning bush. He argued a little bit. He said, surely you got somebody else. I said that too. Even when I said it, I knew, I'm back at Moses in the burning bush. This is a habit. This is something I want to get rid of. I don't want to be arguing with God over simple little things like, would you please write this book and would you please publish it? That's really simple. It's not worthy of a good argument. So that's what the exchange is really all about. What are the things that keep us from being the total yield in the kingdom that he has for us, that 100%, versus the things that we are just satisfied with? Are we satisfied with our relationship or do we want more? So at the end, there's two characters who gave everything away for the more. And I termed that group the beloved. Everybody's beloved, but they knew it.
I want to go back to something you said. It's funny, we don't think of the different meanings of the word yield when we're talking about it. And you talk about a yield of, hey, we planted this and it yielded this much, right? It created, or this much grew from it, or this was a result of it. And that yet that word yield, as for us to yield. And and I appreciate what you're sharing is, the more you yield, the more you yield, right? I think is to phrase it that way. We had a question come in, and I think it's worthy. It says, "Can you talk about the gorgeous illustrations in the book?"
Absolutely. In my mind, as I was starting to develop this, the characters actually had faces, they had mannerisms. I could see them completely. And then the search was on, do I represent that in the book? Because everybody, imagines people differently. So do I give them a hint as to what I'm imagining, or do I just let them go on their own? And I decided pretty early on that I wanted these characters to have a face and to have a life so that we could all identify with what they are. They are symbols as well. They're not everybody, like John, for instance, has somewhat the look of an older farmer guy. But there's people in the 30s, that 30 yield, that minimal yield, in all walks of life. So I didn't want to make people think that's just what it is. But I'm going to give readers a lot of credit. They can go beyond that, and understand that. So in that search for who would capture those illustrations for me, I came across an incredible guy named J. Brian Craig, who is a pastor, a musician, an artist, and a writer of songs, beautiful songs, quite an amazing guy. And he and I worked together just very fluidly, just very beautifully. It was like, here's what I'm thinking. Here's some of the stuff that's in the book. I sent him a couple pictures that I found on the net just to give him some base start ideas as to what I was thinking. And then he just did a beautiful job. I love the work that he did.
And we do too. And in fact, we were really excited that he ended up creating the cover artwork as well.
Yes.
That one of our artists worked with to work into the book cover. But he's created lovely graphics for this. And we're really excited about it because it does add to the book. It makes it more interesting and special. Certainly.
Yeah. The cover, I couldn't be more thrilled. I mean, when you write something that's high allegory in itself, an allegory about an allegory, it's very much, it's a visual sort of thing. So what is the picture that I want people to get? This revolving door thing, this always open building and exchange. How do we capture that? And Brian did a fantastic job of capturing the doors and the entryway, which is key to everybody's involvement in this story. But what would the building look like? And we battered that around a little bit, and then he came up with that. And then the artist at Ignite added the clouds. And I was like, yep, that's it. That's perfect. You caught it. It's all there. So of all the symbols in the book, I love that the cover is the first one.
Wonderful. And I'm really excited that you're so excited, and we are too. It's a beautiful book. It's honestly one of the most beautiful covers I think that we've got in our inventory of books that we've created. It's lovely.
It is. Actually, it's interesting of folks that have gotten back to me that have, generously jumped in and purchased the Kindle already. Several comments came back. What a beautiful cover. They hadn't even opened it yet or scrolled in yet, but they were intrigued by the cover. God loves beautiful things. His temple, he was so detailed and so beautiful in that original temple. He loves beautiful things. So I love the beautiful cover too.
So share with me what, Alice, was it hard to write the book?
Okay, this will. There's a researcher that talks about being in the flow, and that space that you get into where hours go by and time doesn't exist. And he's not a believer, but I believe he has captured with that idea of flow what happens when you're in full communication with the Spirit, and he's talking to you and he's feeding to you and you're moving forward together. One of the things God said when he started putting this together, I can do academic writing, and I've done it. And it's much more in my usual vein of understanding. But when I sat with the Spirit and said, teach me or show me, and he would give me this character, and it got to be kind of funny. Toward the end, as I was finishing it up, he would start the chapter. I would hear the chapter start. And if I was out and about or wherever, I'd grab my phone and I'd dictate the opening chapter. Then I'd get to my laptop, I would put the chapter down, and then I would say, what do we want to say here? And then the flow would come. So honestly, no, it wasn't hard to write the book. It was actually pretty fun, to which I thought, oh, okay, so this was pretty fun. Like I said, I've done academic writing. No, that's not necessarily very fun. Very detailed, very accurate. Every word, is in there. But writing with the Holy Spirit and allowing him to give you the ideas and to flow and to move forward, that is very fun. And in fact, he started another one. And I was in the editing process with Ignite, and I started getting the same kind of like information and openings of chapters and running to the thing. And I was like, but wait a minute, the exchange is done. And and I suddenly realized, like, the kingdom is ever expanding. It's never done. Yes, the work is finished, but his kingdom ever expands. So there's always more fun and joy available. So I've started another one called The Elevator. And then he gave me the chapter that brings the two together. And it's through a character called Gray Hair. Gray Hair is at the end of her journey in the exchange. So in the exchange, she's saying goodbye, basically. But in the elevator, we get a little bit more of her story, and she then leads into the other characters in the elevator. And then just the other day, he downloaded a whole story off of the parable of new wine. And it was an entirely different take. I thought, I've never thought of it that way before, Father. That's really interesting. And he said, here we go. So don't know all of what's coming ahead, but I know that the exchange basically really is the door that's opening, and that he wants to give more revelation, help more people understand who he really is and what's available to them in the kingdom.
Well, we're grateful that you've taken the time to do this, and I'm glad that you were able to write the book, in the flow. Some books kind of write themselves, and others really don't. And I'm grateful that you've encountered one that helped, where it feels like God's hand is in it, helping make it happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, for some people, it feels like pushing a rope unless you've got, proper guidance from a good book coach or a good book writing formula or something. Yeah. In this case, you had the ultimate book coach.
Yes,
the original book coach,
the original one,
helping you through this. And there's a lot, and he's got a lot of books to his name. So
yes, he does. Yeah, yes. I know about the hard stuff. I do leadership development classes and helping people come into their leadership calling, and I do mentoring with that. That's what I mostly do. So that book got all, like I have all the chapters and some of the subheadings in the chapters. That's a very typical informational book, which God said to put aside because he was writing the exchange with me. And that was the one he wanted to do. So I think there will be a time where the book that actually feels like a little more work, is research-based, has the how-tos in it. That book's probably in the works at some point, but that isn't what God wanted to talk about first. He wanted to talk about how do you get into the Father's heart and what really touches him. And it's all about what we yield and the keys in our life that we hold, that we give away to him. And that's what he wanted to be released first. That's important to him.
Okay. Well, gosh, so we've talked about the exchange. We've learned about you. We've talked even about the books that are coming, which I didn't know about. So that's fantastic that you're in the midst of writing those books. Where do you want your readers to take this? Like, what do you want your readers to get out of this, and maybe do with the book?
I think the one question, actually, there was a version of the book where I had a lot of devotional and journal and workbook type activities. Still got that. That might come out at some point. But if readers read the book and they just ask the one question, Father, what do you want me to yield today? Then they're going to delight the Father's heart, and they're going to get the point of the book, and they're going to understand. And their walk with the Father is going to increase 30, 60, and 100-fold.
Wow. So God, what do you want me to yield today? There's the question to start the day.
There's the question. Yeah.
All right. Well, Alice, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off on this interview? I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to write the book and have gone through, you've invested time, talent, and resources in order to make this, time, talent, and treasures in order to make this happen. So is there anything else you'd like to share here?
I would really enjoy it if people read the book and let me know what they think. It's written in very simple language, so the readability is accessible to most everybody, but the concepts are at a different level. And I would love it if people would let me know. Can I give my email address?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very easy. info@511impact.com. And I'd love to hear people's stories about what the Father asked them to yield and then what happened in their lives.
Yeah, in fact, let me put that up there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
the email
that.
address. And let me add that also to the comments. So it's info@511impact.com. All right, good. So I put that into the comments for people as well. Well, terrific. Alice, thank you again for your time. Congratulations on the book launch. I'm excited to see what's happening with it. It's already ranking very highly in some of the book's categories. So congratulations on that. And for those people here today, we ask that you simply go take a look at Amazon. You can pick up the book at Amazon today for 99 cents on Kindle. The paperback is also available there. If you see too, in the midst of this launch, buying the Kindle version particularly will really help Alice as the book launch happens. But of course, pick up the paperback as well. And that's something you can share with others. By the way, this book makes a phenomenal gift. And it doesn't have to be Christmas time to give somebody a gift of a thoughtful book that will change their lives. So certainly recommend that you pick up a copy of the exchange. So thank you very much for joining us today. And again, if you are interested in writing a book yourself, or if you've written a book and you would like to see it come out to the world and get on Amazon and Walmart.com and BarnesandNoble.com and all the .com bookstores, certainly reach out to us at ignitepress.us, So there we go. Thank you very much for joining us today.